Welcome back to the channel. This game features the match played between Nigel and Lev Alburt of the US in 1985. It was a match played in Foxboro, USA, and it featured the current UK champion, who was Nigel, against Albert, who was the current US champion. And on paper, should have been a close match, as both players were rated the same at 2-5-3-5. This is the game one, and the game started as a Alekhine defence. All normal stuff. And knight to g5. Obviously, this now threatens the f7 pawn. Two ways to defend it. D5 invites f4, which will give white a nice initiative. So Albert plays e6, which is the best move. And Nigel continues the pressure on the f7 pawn. And white seems to have a nice position out of the opening. Quite a bold move to resolve the centre. But it does allow bishop g5 and queen b4 check. And this is all still theory. I think we get to the point now where this is out of theory. And here Nigel decides to be positive and play knight to f6. Obviously, you can't take the knight because of queen takes f6, threatening queen e7 mate, and queen takes h8 check. So the king has to move. And Nigel continues to pressure in the centre. So he's actually sacked the pawn at the moment to get the initiative. And Albert plays the best move in response, e4, threatening the queen. I mean, if he plays the knight takes d5, when all the pieces come off, white's in a very good position, threatening mate on f7. So he can't really play that, and if he tries h6 straight away in this position, then he falls for the very nasty d takes e6, and if he takes the bishop, then knight to d7 with a discovered attack on discovered threat of queen takes f7. So Albert plays the right move in e4. And Nigel just sidesteps the threat. Again, he could have maybe taken the pawn, but again, it's a bit of a mistake after h6. And in this position, black's doing very well. So white wouldn't want to go down that route. And if queen to f4, now knight takes d5 will work because of the very good move h6, which is an intermezzo move, forcing the bishop away. So Nigel actually played one of the best moves in queen to g3, but he seems to have lost a bit of an impetus, and now he's got to try and justify the pawn sack. And here Albert plays knight to d7. Maybe knight to a6 was better. And this looks quite good for black. He's starting to liquidate the pressure, and knight c5 is coming. So knight b d7 was played, and Nigel exchanged the knight, and then the pawns. Well, he takes the pawn, and then knight to c5, which attacks the bishop on b3, and it looks like the a pawn's pinned to the rook. So Nigel throws a check in first, and then castles. And it looks like that knight takes b3 can be played, but after a takes b3, queen takes a1. Queen takes c7 is devastating, and rook to b1, and black has to give his queen up to avoid mate. So castles was played, and now white's in a very good position. h6, forcing the bishop back. Bishop f4 was played. I think bishop e3 would have been a better move. And now Obo decides to exchange the knight for bishop, but Nigel plays another intermezzo move, attacking the queen. Obo moves the queen, and after the queen trade, and the pawn, and after this position, the position's calmed right down, and the material's equal, and white doesn't seem to have a lot of the advantage left. He's got double pawns on the B file and the G file. His knight still needs to be developed, and I think black's doing okay here at this point. So Nigel does develop, defended, and knight to c4. And a bit of positional manoeuvring. White's going to try and exploit black's weak dark squares, but it's not immediately obvious how he's going to win the game. Getting the pawn out of danger, and rook to b8 looks a bit passive. The b pawn would have to be defended, but the rook looks a bit unhappy on that square. So Nigel attacks it, and here the positions looks like it's going to peter out to a draw. Black has the two bishops, and these pieces are starting to untangle themselves and starting to look quite nice. Obviously, knight takes b7 fails to rook b8. So Nigel defends, and black gets his final piece into the game. Attacks the bishop, which drops back to f6. He can't take the knight because the rook takes d6. And after something like this, the rooks will get into the position, and white's got the initiative. So black didn't really want to give him that, so he plays bishop to f6, which is perfectly fine. Nigel offers to trade the bishops, and I think this is the first real mistake from black. He decides to trade the bishops in time trouble. I think bishop to b3 would have been a better move. Rook to d2 and bishop to g5. And even in this position, white's is slightly better, but black's fine and should be able to hold the draw fairly easy. But after bishop takes d4, rook takes d4, white seems to have all the initiative. And again, the rook has to go back to defend the b pawn potentially, although the rook on h7 was defending it. So it's a bit of a, I'm not sure quite what the idea of that move was. Rook to e5, attacking the bishop, which is defended. And this is going to move g4, wins a pawn. You can't play f takes g4 because the rook will just take the pawn and gang up on the bishop. So Albert moves his king across to try and get into the centre, and Nigel duly wins his pawn. And now we reach a rook and pawn ending where white has an extra pawn, but it is doubled. So it's just a matter of technique now whether we can get the win. The one thing you would say is that his rook is much more active than the black rook at this stage. And it's just a matter of getting his king out as well. And it should be a matter of technique. And that's a nice move. And black's going to get himself in a position where he's going to run out of moves, forcing the king back and pushing the pawns. And here the only way to save the b pawn was to exchange the rooks, but this leads to a completely losing endgame, as white has 3 pawns on the queen side. And once he trades off potentially trades off the b pawn, which black refused. And here b6, obviously the king's going to go in and gobble up the a pawn, and the position is completely won endgame. So a good start to the match for Nigel. Quite a smooth game. It looked very drawish for a long time. It's quite explosive in the start of the middle game and then quietened down. But yeah, just one bad. I think swapping the black bishop maybe might have been the one problem that black would have had at this point. And I think this gave the initiative to white. And I think from there on, he was always going to apply the pressure and win the game. So as I say, good start to the match for Nigel, and so he went 1-0 up. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the game. I'll be back with game. I think I'll cover all the games in this match. It was an eight game match, so I'll be back with game 2 in due course. Bye for now.